The year is 1930. Deep within a forgotten European facility, scientists began a radical study on sleep deprivation. It would soon become a legend of sheer terror. Documents from that era speak of an experimental gas designed to eliminate the human need for rest. They promised unlimited productivity, but they unlocked something far more sinister. 5 subjects were chosen under strict conditions. They were political prisoners, offered false promises of freedom if they could simply stay awake for 30 consecutive days and nights. Researchers sealed these men inside a reinforced steel chamber. Thick glass windows allowed observation, while hidden vents pumped a continuous stream of the experimental stimulant into the room. Microphones captured every sound they made. Books, cots without blankets, and basic rations were provided. For the first 4 days, everything seemed entirely normal within the sealed environment. Conversations were casual and calm. The subjects discussed their past lives and shared quiet stories. The monitoring scientist took meticulous notes, eager to record this monumental medical breakthrough. However, on the 5th day, the tone shifted drastically. The subjects stopped talking to one another entirely. They began to whisper darkly into the microphones about past traumas. Paranoia infected the isolated room like a sudden plague. The men started showing severe signs of acute psychosis, suspecting the researchers and each other of malicious hidden agendas. By the 9th day, a horrifying escalation occurred. One subject began screaming uncontrollably. He ran back and forth across the chamber for hours until his vocal cords tore. Strangely, the other 4 men did not react to his agony. They continued whispering into the microphones, entirely detached from the horrific display of suffering happening beside them. Soon after, another prisoner started shrieking. The remaining conscious subjects grabbed books, smeared the pages with their own bodily waste, and pasted them over the glass observation windows. The screaming abruptly stopped. The whispering ceased completely. For 3 agonizing days, absolute silence radiated from the sealed chamber, leaving the observing scientists completely blind and profoundly terrified. Oxygen consumption metrics proved all 5 subjects were still alive. They were consuming oxygen at levels consistent with heavy physical exertion, despite the total lack of expected noise. Desperate for answers, the lead researcher decided to break protocol. He used the intercom to announce they were opening the chamber, threatening to shoot anyone who resisted orders. A single chilling voice answered from within the dark room. It spoke in a calm tone, stating that they no longer wanted to be freed from their prison. Debates raged among the scientific staff. At midnight on the 15th day, they decided to flush the stimulant gas from the chamber and replace it with fresh air. The moment the fresh oxygen entered, the microphones picked up horrific wailing. The subjects begged for the gas to be turned back on, screaming as if dying painfully. Armed soldiers were finally sent into the facility to open the heavy steel doors. What they found inside the room defied all medical science and human psychological comprehension. 4 of the 5 subjects were still breathing. However, none could be described as truly alive in any conventional sense. The chamber was flooded with unimaginable dark gore. Rations from the past 5 days remained completely untouched. The men had survived by consuming portions of their own flesh, tearing away skin and muscle with bare hands. Vital organs were left exposed as chests had been violently opened. Despite these clearly fatal injuries, their hearts continued beating. They were awake, aware, and seemingly very strong. Soldiers refused to enter further, terrified by the grotesque sight. The subjects fought back with unnatural ferocity, severely wounding several armed guards who attempted to extract them safely. During the violent struggle, another subject suffered massive blood loss and eventually died. The surviving 3 were subdued and transported immediately to a hidden underground medical testing facility. Doctors attempted to administer anesthetics to perform emergency surgery. Shockingly, the subjects were completely immune to the sedatives, demanding only that the experimental gas be turned back on. When asked why they had mutilated themselves, a subject smiled. He whispered that he simply needed to remain awake. Sleep had become an absolute concept of utter dread. Surgery proceeded without any pain medication. The patients remained conscious, occasionally laughing in a manner that disturbed the entire surgical team. They felt absolutely no physical pain whatsoever. One nurse suffered a nervous breakdown after witnessing the operation. She claimed the patient maintained constant eye contact, smiling wider every time the surgeon made a deep incision. The lead commander of the facility ordered the experiment to continue. He believed the stimulant held the key to creating an army of soldiers immune to fatigue completely. The lead researcher vehemently disagreed, arguing the subjects were no longer human. He begged the commander to terminate the project before something entirely uncontrollable was unleashed upon them. Despite the protests, the commander locked the researcher and 2 remaining subjects back into the chamber. They were ordered to resume the sleep deprivation experiment without any delay. Realizing his impending doom, the researcher drew a smuggled pistol. He shot the commander between the eyes before turning the weapon toward the terrifyingly silent, unblinking experimental subjects. He demanded to know what they had become. The last surviving subjects simply smiled again, stating they were the madness hiding within all men, begging to be freed. The researcher fired his final rounds into the remaining subjects. Silence reclaimed the facility. The horrific experiment had finally ended, but the true mystery was just quietly beginning. Following the massacre, a specialized military cleanup crew arrived. Their strict orders were to sanitize the facility completely, burn all documentation, and ensure nobody ever learned the truth. However, some whispers escaped the flames. Junior staff members who witnessed the horror began vanishing in the weeks that followed. Entire families simply disappeared without a single trace. Investigations launched by independent journalists during the 1940s hit dead ends constantly. Key witnesses were either confirmed dead or locked away in remote, highly secure psychiatric wards. One nurse who survived the initial event gave a terrifying final interview. She claimed the gas was not a stimulant, but something intended to isolate the human soul. Shortly after providing this disturbing statement, she too vanished from her home. Police found her front door unlocked and a single phonograph playing static continuously in the parlor. Archival records from the regional government show an anomalous spike in missing persons during that specific decade. Most of these individuals had undocumented ties to the military facility. Skeptics argue the entire story is an elaborate myth born from Cold War paranoia. They claim such a facility never existed and the sleep gas was purely fictional. Yet, declassified documents released decades later revealed startling inconsistencies. Funding codes matched a secret biological weapons program designed to push human endurance past normal physiological limits through chemistry. There are also blueprints of a containment chamber matching the exact dimensions described in the horrific legends. These blueprints include detailed schematics for complex ventilation and observation mirrors. Modern neurologists suggest that prolonged wakefulness causes the brain to enter waking dream states. Hallucinations become severe, and the line between reality and terrible nightmares quickly dissolves completely. However, even extreme sleep deprivation cannot fully account for the unnatural physical strength or the horrific bodily destruction reported in the original incident files leaked to the public. The exact formula of the experimental gas remains a closely guarded secret. Some fringe historians believe the military eventually perfected it for modern use in covert black operations. If true, this implies soldiers are currently operating without the need for sleep. They would be immune to psychological exhaustion, driven only by an artificial chemical waking nightmare. We must ask ourselves what happens when we strip away the natural rest our bodies require. Sleep is not merely a weakness, it is a vital biological necessity. Without dreams, the mind seeks other ways to process reality. Perhaps the darkness we experience during sleep prevents the conscious mind from tearing itself apart in broad daylight. The missing witnesses understood this truth intimately. They saw exactly what humans become when forced to stare into the abyss of endless consciousness without any moment of reprieve. Their silence speaks volumes. By eliminating those who knew too much, the architects of this atrocity ensured their monstrous creation would remain buried safely in the historical shadows. Today, urban explorers occasionally search for the ruins of this forgotten bunker. A few claim to have found hidden basement levels matching the terrifying descriptions perfectly in structure. They report a lingering chemical odor that defies description. Electronics mysteriously fail within the deeper tunnels, and an oppressive feeling of dread forces most to leave almost immediately. Video footage from these amateur excursions rarely surfaces online. When it does, algorithms quickly bury the content, or it is removed entirely under vague claims of copyright violation. The systematic suppression of information suggests an ongoing cover operation. Someone powerful clearly wishes to keep the legacy of the sleep experiment confined to the realm of fiction. But myths are often built upon a foundation of truth. The missing scientists, the erased documents, and the unexplainable blueprints all point toward a dark reality we ignore. We sleep because we must. We dream to escape the boundaries of our waking minds. Denying this cycle invites a horror far worse than any natural physical death. Those 5 men became something unrecognizable in the dark. They transformed into empty vessels, stripped of their humanity, leaving behind a terrifying warning for future generations of scientists. Will we heed this warning, or will ambition push us back into that sealed chamber? The desire to conquer human limitations remains a dangerous and highly unpredictable obsession. As night falls, remember the precious gift of rest. Close your eyes and let the darkness claim you. safe from the artificial madness created by misguided scientific minds. The lost witnesses of 1930 will never be found. Their screams echo only in the forgotten shadows, forever trapped in a waking nightmare that literally never ends.